The screams of the dying echoed through the valley, a harrowing symphony of war that seemed to drown even the thunder of explosions. Smoke billowed into the sky, and the ground beneath the soldiers' feet trembled as alien war machines moved inexorably closer. The Earth's defenders were outnumbered, outgunned, and outmatched, yet they stood their ground, knowing this was their last stand. Among them was Captain Elena Torres, her face streaked with soot and blood. Her uniform was torn, her sidearm nearly out of ammunition, but her resolve was unbroken. She barked orders into her comm unit, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. Fall back to the second line. Hold the perimeter. We can't let them breach the command center. The aliens, towering figures of metallic armor and glowing visors, showed no signs of mercy. They moved with precision, their weapons cutting through Earth's defenses like a hot knife through butter. They had come to conquer, to subjugate, and to claim the planet as their own. But they hadn't anticipated the ferocity of humanity's resistance. Despite their technological superiority, the aliens found themselves slowed, their advance hindered by the sheer determination of the defenders. For every human that fell, another took their place, their faces etched with defiance. Elena crouched behind a crumbling wall, her heart pounding as she reloaded her weapon. Beside her, Private Jax Meyer, barely 18 and shaking with fear, clutched his rifle like a lifeline. "Captain," he stammered, his voice cracking. "We're not gonna make it, are we?" Elena glanced at him, her expression softening. "We're gonna hold," she said firmly. "As long as we're breathing, we're gonna hold. Do you hear me?" Jax nodded, though tears streamed down his soot-streaked face. He was just a kid, thrust into a war he didn't understand, fighting against an enemy that seemed invincible. Yet, as he looked into Elena's eyes, he found a spark of courage he didn't know he had. The next wave of alien soldiers advanced, their weapons charging with a menacing hum. Elena gritted her teeth, raising her sidearm. "Hold the line," she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. For Earth, the battle that followed was a blur of fire and blood. Soldiers fell on both sides, the ground littered with the bodies of the fallen. Elena fought like a woman possessed, her every action a testament to the unyielding spirit of humanity. She was a beacon of hope in the darkness, her defiance a rallying cry for those around her. But even her strength had its limits. As the aliens pushed closer, a stray blast struck the wall she was using for cover. The force of the explosion sent her sprawling, her weapon flying from her grasp. Pain lanced through her body as she hit the ground, her vision swimming. When she looked up, she found herself staring into the cold, glowing visor of an alien soldier. Its weapon was trained on her, its finger tightening on the trigger. Time seemed to slow as Elena braced for the inevitable, but the shot never came. Instead, the alien hesitated, its visor flickering as if in conflict. For a moment, it seemed almost human, its posture less menacing and more uncertain. Elena stared at it, her breath caught in her throat. "What are you waiting for?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. The alien didn't answer. It lowered its weapon slightly, its glowing eyes meeting hers. In that brief moment, something passed between them, a silent understanding that transcended words, a spark of recognition that neither could fully explain. And then, before Elena could react, the alien turned and fled, disappearing into the smoke. She lay there for what felt like an eternity, her mind racing. What had just happened? Why had the alien spared her? And what did it mean for the war that had consumed their world? As she struggled to her feet, the battle still raging around her, Elena knew one thing for certain: the war was far from over. But for the first time, she saw a glimmer of hope, not in humanity's weapons or strategies, but in the unlikeliest of places. Because even in the face of annihilation, mercy had found a way. Elena's brush with death left her shaken but determined. As she regrouped with the remnants of her unit, the questions swirled in her mind like a storm. What had caused the alien soldier to hesitate? Was it a malfunction, a moment of weakness, or something deeper? The Resistance Command Center was a hive of activity when she arrived. Engineers scrambled to repair damaged equipment, medics tended to the wounded, and commanders debated their next move. Despite the chaos, there was a palpable sense of urgency. The aliens were regrouping, and it was only a matter of time before they launched another assault. Elena found herself in the medical bay, her injuries minor compared to the others. As a nurse stitched the gash on her arm, she overheard snippets of conversation from the nearby beds. "They're not machines," one soldier muttered, his voice slurred from painkillers. "I saw one hesitate. Could have killed me, but it didn't. Maybe it's guilt," another said, his tone bitter. "Maybe they're starting to realize we're not so different." Elena's heart raced as she listened. She wasn't the only one who had experienced this strange phenomenon. But what did it mean? Were the aliens capable of empathy? And if so, could it be used to humanity's advantage? Determined to find find answers, Elena sought out Clara Singh, the Resistance's top intelligence officer. Clara was known for her sharp mind and unwavering focus, her office a sanctuary of organized chaos. Maps, reports, and photographs covered every surface, the room a testament to her relentless pursuit of understanding the enemy. Elena recounted her encounter with the alien soldier, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. "It didn't shoot," she said, her eyes locked on Clara's. "It could have killed me, but it didn't. And I'm not the only one who's seen it happen." Clara leaned back in her chair, her brow furrowed. "You're suggesting they're hesitating," she said, "that they're showing mercy." Elena nodded. "It's not just hesitation, something else, like they're questioning why they're here." Clara tapped her fingers on the desk, her mind racing. "If that's true, it changes everything," she said. "But we need proof, something concrete we can use to turn the tide." The opportunity came sooner than expected. During a daring raid on an alien outpost, the Resistance captured one of the invaders, a young soldier whose visor had been damaged in the skirmish. It was the first time they had taken a prisoner alive, and the implications were staggering. The alien, now confined to a reinforced cell in the command center, was a towering figure with gray, chitinous skin and deep, black eyes that seemed to absorb light. Despite its imposing appearance, there was an unmistakable vulnerability in the way it sat, its shoulders slumped and its gaze distant. Elena was chosen to lead the interrogation. As she entered the cell, she felt a surge of apprehension. The alien looked up, its eyes meeting hers, and she was struck by a sense of déjà vu. Was this the same soldier who had spared her? She placed a small device on the table, a translator modified to bridge the linguistic gap. "My name is Captain Elena Torres," she began, her voice calm but firm. "You're our prisoner, but I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to talk." The alien's gaze remained steady, its expression unreadable. After a long pause, it spoke, its voice a low, melodic hum translated into halting English. "You are not like the others." Elena's breath caught in her throat. "What do you mean?" she asked, leaning forward. The alien hesitated, its eyes flickering with something akin to sorrow. "Your kind fights with fire and fury," it said. "But you showed something we did not expect. Mercy." Elena's heart pounded as the words sank in. "Why are you here?" she asked. "Why invade our world?" The alien's gaze dropped, its shoulders sagging. "We were sent to conquer," it said, "to claim this world for our empire. But not all of us agree with the cause. Some of us question its purpose." For the first time, Elena saw the enemy not as a faceless invader, but as an individual with doubts and fears. The realization hit her like a tidal wave. They weren't so different after all. Over the next several days, Elena and the alien, who introduced itself as Corin, spoke at length. Corin revealed that many of its kind had grown weary of the endless cycle of war, their doubts kept silent under the watchful eyes of their commanders. They were soldiers, bound by duty, but not without conscience. Elena shared stories of Earth, of the beauty and resilience of its people. She spoke of the children who had lost parents, the cities reduced to rubble, and the unyielding spirit that kept humanity fighting. Her words seemed to resonate with Corin, its expression softening as it listened. "You fight not for conquest," Corin said one day, its voice tinged with awe, "but for survival, for each other." "That's what it means to be human," Elena replied. "We don't give up on each other, even when it seems hopeless." Their conversation sparked something Elena hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. If Corin and others like it could be reached, if they could see the humanity in their enemies, perhaps the war could end not with annihilation, but with understanding. But not everyone in the Resistance shared her optimism. As word of her interactions with Corin spread, some viewed her as naive, even traitorous. "They're the enemy," one soldier spat. "You can't trust them." Elena stood her ground, her voice steady but firm. "We've tried fighting fire with fire," she said, "and look where it's gotten us. Maybe it's time we tried something different." As tensions rose within the Resistance, Elena faced a choice: to continue the cycle of hatred and vengeance, or to take a leap of faith and offer the enemy something they had never expected. Mercy. The decision to offer mercy was met with resistance, both from within Elena's ranks and her own mind. The Resistance was a fractious alliance of survivors, each carrying their own scars and losses. Many had watched their loved ones perish under the merciless onslaught of the aliens, and the idea of treating one as an ally was unthinkable to them. But Elena persisted. She called called for a council meeting, gathering leaders from across the resistance. The room was tense, filled with murmurs of dissent and the heavy weight of mistrust. At the center stood Corin, its posture calm yet uncertain, its presence a living testament to the choice humanity had yet to make. Elena addressed the room, her voice steady but impassioned. "I know what you've lost," she began. "I know what we've all lost, but hatred and vengeance won't bring them back. What if there's another way? What if we can end this war without losing more of what we hold dear?" One of the commanders, a grizzled veteran named Cole, rose to his feet, his expression hard. "You think they care about mercy?" he said, his voice sharp. "They came here to destroy us, and now you want to trust one of them?" Elena met his gaze, unwavering. "I don't trust easily," she said, "but I've spoken to Corin. I've listened, and what I've heard gives me hope. They're not all the same, Cole. Some of them want this war to end as much as we do." Corin stepped forward, its deep voice resonating through the room. "I am not your enemy," it said. "I was sent here to conquer, but I no longer believe in the cause. If you are willing to show mercy, I will do everything in my power to help you." The room erupted into heated debate, voices clashing like swords. But as the arguments continued, something began to shift. Some of the leaders, weary of the endless fighting, started to consider Elena's words. The idea of an end to the bloodshed, however improbable, was too powerful to ignore. In the end, the council reached a fragile consensus. Corin would be allowed to assist the resistance under strict supervision. It was a gamble, one fraught with risk, but it was also a chance, perhaps their only chance, to turn the tide. With Corin's help, the resistance gained valuable insights into the alien strategies and weaknesses. Maps of their fortresses, vulnerabilities in their technology, and even intelligence on dissent within their ranks. All of it came from Corin, who risked everything to betray its own kind. But the decision to trust an alien came at a cost. Splinter groups within the resistance broke away, their leaders unwilling to follow a path they saw as naive. They launched their own attacks, reckless and uncoordinated, further complicating the war effort. Through it all, Elena and Corin forged a bond of mutual respect and understanding. They trained together, shared stories of their worlds, and dreamed of a future where their peoples could coexist. For Elena, it was a fragile hope, but one worth fighting for. The climactic moment came during the Resistance's assault on the alien command ship, a colossal fortress that hovered above Earth like a harbinger of doom. The ship was the heart of the invasion, its destruction key to ending the war. Corin led the team tasked with infiltrating the ship, its knowledge of the layout proving invaluable. Elena fought alongside it, their movements synchronized as they navigated the labyrinthine corridors. The ship's interior was a stark contrast to the chaos outside, cold, sterile, and eerily quiet. As they approached the command center, the weight of the mission bore down on Elena. This was their chance to end the war, but it was also a moment of reckoning. If they failed, humanity's survival would hang by a thread. The final confrontation was as brutal as it was poignant. The alien commander, a towering figure of authority and menace, confronted them in the heart of the ship. It recognized Corin immediately, its voice a mix of anger and disdain. "You betrayed us," it said. "For what? These humans?" Corin stood tall, its voice unwavering. "For hope," it replied. "For a future without this endless cycle of war." The battle that followed was a blur of fire and fury, each side fighting with everything they had. In the end, it was Corin who dealt the final blow, its actions cementing its place as a hero not just to humanity, but to those among its own kind who yearned for peace. As the command ship fell from the sky, its destruction a beacon of victory, the world below erupted in celebration. The war was over, but the journey toward healing had only just begun. In the weeks that followed, Corin became a bridge between the two species, its actions inspiring others to lay down their arms. Elena, now a symbol of unity and resilience, led efforts to rebuild not just Earth, but the relationships that would define its future. Standing together in the ruins of the battlefield, Elena and Corin looked out at the dawn of a new era. "We have a long way to go," Elena said, her voice filled with both hope and resolve. Corin nodded, its gaze fixed on the horizon. "But we will get there," it said, "together." And so, in the wake of destruction, mercy had found a way, not just to survive, but to build something greater, something worth fighting for. The days after the war's end were a mixture of relief and uncertainty. Earth's people emerged from shelters and bunkers, their faces etched with both grief and determination. Cities were in ruins, but the spirit of humanity was unbroken. Across the globe, efforts to rebuild began in earnest, with former soldiers and civilians working side by side to restore what had been lost. Corin's presence among the humans was met with a range of reactions: curiosity, gratitude, suspicion, and even hostility. For many, the sight of an alien walking freely in their midst was a bitter reminder of the war's devastation. But for others, it was a symbol of what could be achieved through understanding and cooperation. Elena took it upon herself to mediate these interactions, using her position as a war hero to bridge the gap between her people and Corin. She organized town hall meetings where survivors could voice their concerns and questions. At first, the meetings were tense, filled with anger and mistrust. But over time, as Corin shared its story and expressed genuine remorse, the walls began to come down. One such meeting took place in a small village that had been almost entirely destroyed during the war. The residents, many of whom had lost loved ones, were understandably wary of Corin. But as it spoke, its voice steady and its words filled with sorrow, a quiet understanding began to settle over the crowd. "We were taught to see you as enemies," Corin said, its gaze sweeping across the room. "But in fighting you, I saw the truth. You are not so different from us. You love, you grieve, you hope. And in your mercy, you have given me the chance to see the light." An elderly man stood, his weathered face lined with pain. "My son died defending this village," he said, his voice trembling. "How do we forgive that?" Corin bowed its head, its own grief palpable. "You do not have to forgive," it said, "but I will spend the rest of my life trying to honor your loss. Not with words, but with actions." The man's expression softened, and he nodded. "Then let your actions speak," he said, "and let them be louder than the guns that tore this village apart." The turning point came when Corin proposed the formation of a joint task force, humans and aliens working together to rebuild Earth and prevent future conflicts. It was a bold idea, met with skepticism, but it gained traction as more aliens came forward, inspired by Corin's defection. The task force, named the Accord Initiative, became a beacon of hope. Engineers, scientists, and builders from both species collaborated to restore cities, develop sustainable technologies, and heal the scars of war. Former battlefields were transformed into memorial gardens, their soil enriched by the shared labor of human and alien hands. Elena, now a central figure in the Accord, worked tirelessly to ensure its success. She traveled to the farthest corners of Earth, speaking to communities and listening to their concerns. Her message was simple but powerful. We can only move forward together. As the years passed, the Accord grew into something greater than anyone had imagined. New alliances were formed, new technologies developed, and new worlds explored. The lessons of the war, of mercy, resilience, and the strength of unity became the foundation of a new era. Corin, once a soldier of an empire, became a statesman of peace. It represented its people with dignity and humility, working to dismantle the remnants of the war machine that had brought so much destruction. Its actions inspired countless others to follow suit, and over time, the wounds between the two species began to heal. One day, decades after the war's end, a monument was unveiled in what had once been the battlefield where Elena and Corin had fought side by side. The monument, a towering sculpture of intertwined human and alien figures, bore an inscription in both languages. "In mercy, we found strength. In understanding, we found peace." Elena, now older but no less determined, stood before the monument with Corin at her side. Around them, a diverse crowd gathered, humans and aliens of all ages, their faces filled with hope. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the monument, Elena spoke. "We were once enemies," she said, her voice carrying across the crowd. "But in our darkest hour, we chose to see each other not as adversaries, but as equals. That choice changed the course of history, and it is a choice we must continue to make every day." Corin stepped forward, its voice resonating with quiet power. "The path of mercy is not an easy one," it said, "but it is the only path that leads to a future worth fighting for. Together, we will walk that path, and together, we will light the way for those who come after us." As the crowd erupted into applause, Elena and Corin exchanged a glance, a silent acknowledgement of the journey they had shared. They had fought, they had struggled, and they had dared to believe in something greater. And in doing so, they had changed the world. Far above, the stars shone brightly, their light a reminder that even in the vastness of the universe, the choices of a few could echo across eternity. And as the monument stood tall against the night sky, it carried with it a message for all who would see it. Mercy is the light that guides us home. The legacy of mercy extended far beyond Earth. As the Accord grew, its influence spread to other worlds, its message of unity resonating with civilizations that had known their own struggles. The story of Elena and Corin became a symbol of what was possible when compassion triumphed over conflict, inspiring movements for peace across the galaxy. Generations later, the Accord launched its most ambitious project yet, a vast exploration fleet designed to seek out new civilizations and offer friendship and collaboration. The fleet's flagship, the Mercy's Light, bore the names of those who had paved the way for this new era, its mission a testament to the power of reconciliation. Among the fleet's crew was a young diplomat named Lyra, a descendant of the first generation to grow up in the Accord's peaceful embrace. Lyra had spent her life studying the stories of the resistance and the war, her heart filled with both admiration and a desire to honor their sacrifices. As the Mercy's light departed on its maiden voyage, Lyra stood on the observation deck, gazing at the stars with a mixture of awe and determination. We carry their legacy, she thought, and we must ensure it shines brighter with every step we take. The ship's journey took it to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, where it encountered civilizations as diverse as the stars themselves. Some greeted the fleet with open arms, their leaders eager to learn from the Accord's history. Others were cautious, their wounds from past conflicts still fresh. But in every encounter, the crew of the Mercy's Light upheld the principles of mercy and understanding, their actions building bridges where none had existed before. Back on Earth, the passage of time transformed the planet into a beacon of hope and innovation. Cities rebuilt with alien and human ingenuity thrived as centers of culture and learning. The once devastated landscapes were now lush with life, their renewal a symbol of humanity's resilience. In the heart of one such city stood the Accord Museum, its halls filled with artifacts and stories from the war. Visitors from across the galaxy came to learn about the choices that had shaped Earth's destiny, their voices echoing in the vast chambers. At the center of the museum was a holographic display of Elena and Corin, their images captured in a moment of triumph and unity. Children gathered around it, their faces filled with wonder as they listened to the story of how two enemies had become allies. One child, a young alien with shimmering blue skin, turned to her teacher. "Did they really forgive each other?" she asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. The teacher smiled, her gaze soft. "They did," she said, "and because of that, they changed everything." Far from the museum, in a quiet corner of the countryside, a small memorial garden bloomed with flowers from Earth and beyond. It was a place of reflection, its paths lined with stones engraved with the names of those who had fought and fallen. At its center stood a simple bench, its inscription reading, "In mercy we found ourselves." One day, a man and his young daughter visited the garden, their steps slow and reverent. The man, a descendant of one of the Resistance's leaders, knelt to place a flower at the base of the bench. His daughter, wide-eyed with curiosity, looked up at him. "Why do we come here?" she asked, her voice soft. The man smiled, his eyes misty with emotion. "Because this is where it all began," he said, "where people like us chose to be better, even when it was hard. And because their choices made our world possible." The girl nodded, her gaze lingering on the flowers. "I want to be like them," she said. Her father placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You already are," he said. "Every time you choose kindness, every time you listen, every time you stand up for what's right, you're carrying their legacy forward." As the sun set over the garden, casting a golden light over the memorial, the man and his daughter sat in quiet contemplation. The world they lived in was far from perfect, but it was a world built on the foundation of mercy, a world that continued to grow and flourish because of the choices of those who had come before. And somewhere, among the stars, the Mercy's light continued its journey, its mission a living testament to the enduring power of compassion. In its wake, it left a trail of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest times, the light of mercy could guide the way forward. As the ship sailed through the cosmos, its message echoed across the galaxy. In mercy, we found strength. In unity, we found peace. And in understanding, we found a future worth fighting for